Good evening, TNT family. I want to welcome you back to the Yellow is the Code program. And today we are most fortunate to have our friend Dr. Kirk Meighoo, UNC PRO. And Dr. Meighoo, I want to welcome you to the program. Thank you for taking the time to join us here. So, Dr. Meighoo, we would like if you can give us a little update on what you see that's happening in the country and in reference to internally with the current situations that we are dealing with, also the Venezuela issue. We have seen some developments taking place there, and also the involvement with our Prime Minister visiting the UN and the developments that took place with that. If you can update us, we appreciate that. So, Dr. Mayo.
Okay, thanks. Well, good night to you and your viewers. Glad to be here. Glad to join you all. Well, obviously, the main thing is the triumphant, return of Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar to Trinidad and Tobago after an incredible visit to New York and the United Nations General Assembly, her meetings with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, with Saudi Arabia, with United Arab Emirates, and securing visa-free entry into the UAE, in getting a $94 million US grant donation from the government of China. That's in addition to all the investments and other business arrangements we have. It was just, and really delivering an historic, unprecedented speech at the UN that really sets it. It sets a tone. It gives a new direction and a new paradigm for CARICOM. And this is very important. I mean, I'm not just talking off the top of my head here. I've been involved with CARICOM for many years, over almost 20 years. I was advisor to the CARICOM Integrationist Journal on the advisory board committee. I was the intellectual and academic advisor to the UE CARICOM projects. I've spoken and written about CARICOM policies, published in many CARICOM books and so forth. And generally within CARICOM, if we're to talk philosophically here for those who are into political and economic philosophy, it's sort of been a kind of a liberal nationalist kind of discourse, right? Sometimes they would be talking about IMF structural adjustment, but that's kind of been the discourse and all this zone of peace and all the things that the PNM and Mia Motley and Ralph Gonzalez. I suppose you have some slightly more left leaning as well, into more socialist and democratic socialist territory as well. That's just been par for the course in CARICOM, since it was founded in the 60s and 70s. And it's really not taken us anywhere. And in particular, with the fight against narco-terrorism, things have only gotten worse in the Caribbean. And none of this zone of peace talk and whatever the CARICOM leaders are talking about has done anything or will do anything to change the situation. And what Kamala Persad-Bissessar did is really laid out a whole new paradigm in terms of being aggressive with narco traffickers, in terms of rethinking our sovereignty, because we have to be very, very clear about this, especially us in Trinidad and Tobago. Venezuela, one of their ministers just last week or 2 weeks ago was reading on air a statement by somebody who was saying how Venezuela should take back Trinidad, because before the Treaty of Amiens in 1802, we were part of New Spain and the Spanish colonies, not Venezuela, not the Republic of Venezuela, but the Spanish colonies there. I mean, Eric Williams in the 70s warned Trinidad and Tobago against Trinidadian against Venezuelan imperialism. And our Trinidadian fishermen were always harassed by the Coast Guard. Venezuela has already claimed two-thirds of Guyana. They've claimed it. It's in their constitution. It's in their maps. They consider it Venezuela. They just haven't walked in there yet. So this type of so we the only thing that's really keeping us from being absorbed by Venezuela is the United States. We don't. Our
Exactly,
army.
I see that clearly. And the thing about Kirk is that our prime minister made it very clear we are directly affected by what's taking place in Venezuela, by their citizens spilling over into our country, the drugs that these people are desperate and they're selling everything they can in our country so they can feed their family and all this different stuff there. So, as much as we would not like to interfere in Venezuela's affairs, it's obvious that their governance has affected us tremendously and put in a tremendous strain on
Yeah.
our country. So St.
Yeah.
Vincent is not affected and Barbados is not affected. So we
That's
have a
right.
right to speak differently.
And to be clear, the prime minister up to yesterday reiterated her position as it always has been. We're not calling for regime change. We're not supporting regime change and so forth. Whether we like the government in Caracas or not is another issue. There are certainly citizens here in Trinidad and Tobago that are so pro Bolivarian revolution. I don't think they would mind if Maduro came and took over. I think they would be cheering Venezuela on. Very prominent citizens, unfortunately, but that is the case. But we have not called for regime change. It's support for the U.S. Action against narco traffickers. And President Trump just released a memo. It might be this evening. This evening is the first time I saw it, um, where he declared that the U.S. is at war with drug cartels so they are legitimate combatants in war, and this is a non-international armed conflict. I've never heard of that before. It's something, as a policy analyst myself, it's something I've spoken about for decades. That in the in Trinidad and Tobago, our army is not to invade Venezuela or Barbados or Grenada. That makes no sense. What does an army or navy for Trinidad and Tobago really mean? It can be about fighting other countries, but what it can be and what it should be is for fighting non-state threats. So criminal drug cartels, arms traffickers, human traffickers, etc. And that's exactly what now President Trump has officially declared, which is quite incredible. I don't think there's a precedent for this in history, in fact. This is because normally they will wage war against a state, but this is not against a state. They're not at war with Venezuela. They're not at war with Maduro. It's drug cartels. So this is a very interesting type of postmodern war, if you want to put it that way. It's not state against state. It's state against non-state actors. So, and this is what we've been uh, supporting the U.S. for. And then, of course, Prime Minister Kama Prasad's meeting with Secretary Rubio to get the OFAC license and revive the Dragon deal with a brilliant diplomacy, which really caught the PNM totally off guard. They're all hemming and hawing and totally disoriented, and had a very crazy press conference yesterday, throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, trying
Well,
to trying
I
to
always say
dismantle and
that
derail it.
I
Hmm.
always say that the PNM uh, was not a very, how to say, likable administration for international investment. In fact, we saw them pulled out of the country gradually moved away from Trinidad and Tobago because of the PNM coming into power. We started to lose investment because this was a very
Yeah,
arrogant administration. And I mean, I
yeah,
would say within the first 6 months, you know, um, that happened.
yeah.
So.
We had negative foreign exchange. I mean, foreign direct investment. Negative, that means more investment is leaving Trinidad than coming in. And I mean, we're the only Caribbean island with this foreign exchange restriction and crisis. Barbados, they don't have oil and gas. Grenada doesn't have oil and gas. But you can walk into any bank, like how it used to be under every other administration before Keith Rowley, and get whatever US you wanted, and up to maybe some ridiculous amount, like 10,000 or 5. Once it gets up to those levels, that's a different matter. But generally, um, for amounts for people and businesses, you could get anything you wanted. There were no limits on your credit card purchases and so forth. So they totally mismanaged the economy, and and so we've now brought back the dragon gas possibility. We know that's difficult, and that will take a while, as we've always said. And so we're also exploring with Grenada, with Suriname, with Guyana, and then also the non-energy sector. Minister Kama Miraj, whom I'm working closely with as well, has been doing a lot in terms of making the country investor friendly and expanding the non-energy business sector. So these are the things that we're focused on. And I mean, and the murder rate has dropped incredibly, 42%. It's 273 murders this year. It's terrible that we've had that many, but it was 475 last year. That's a 42.5% reduction. That's incredible. That's 202 lives saved. 202. That's almost a murder rate. That used to be our annual murder rate. So we've actually saved that many lives. That's incredible, and it's really amazing that this is not a huge story. That this is not a instead, people are trying to nitpick at this. I don't know why you're trying to nitpick at 202 lives saved, but unfortunately, the poison of the PNM politics is like that. So, but yeah, we are definitely moving in the right direction. 270.
I expected that to happen. The thing about it is that we also know that our entire infrastructure is infested with corrupt PNM tentacles, and
That's
we
right.
have to start all over again. And I described that this many times in the lead up to the election, that we had to cut out those tentacles. And I mean, we've seen. Look, we saw victory with Anand Ramlogan. All of a sudden, for the people's chance, this is something we really have to talk much more about, Kirk, when you get a chance to come back on, because the citizens
Yeah.
that was locked out the country, which I was personally dealing with, and took on the government, and forced their hand, and then I had to go get Anand to help that Joe and Pantin lady, because when I
Right.
saw her responding to her, and I didn't know which way to turn. And then I spoke to Anand's sister Sita, and she told me, she said, why not check Anand? I said, let me try again. And then so Anand came on board to help us. And Anand gave us 10 lawyers to volunteer to assist to file for those citizens. And people panic because of their political affiliation with the PNM, and people
Yeah. I mean,
within their
I mean,
contacts was threatening them, Kirk. They were
yeah,
threatening them because of
and
sympathy.
and the court has found it unconstitutional. It was cruel, and Stuart Young is as arrogant and unapologetic as ever.
He
Totally
lied.
arrogant.
He lied. So
That's
many
right.
times he
And
lied.
the newspaper had a front page editorial saying Stuart Young must go over his handling, over his lying when Delcy came in and he was keeping our citizens
We
out.
need that.
So
We need some clarification on that. That can't
yeah,
go down. That's like we need to know what they bring into the country. Also, going back to Miss Pantin, Stuart Young went on media conference. I don't know if you can remember that. I was trying to find it. And he said, if you go in the press and complain, you're going to have to wait longer to get it back to your country. So this kind of a dictatorial kind of behavior,
correct.
just who he thought he was.
And that
Who
has
he thought
nothing
he
to do with
was.
science. What does that have to do with science? Will you spread COVID more if you complain in the media? What
But the thing was,
what was he following? That has nothing to do with epidemiology, with
but do you look
science,
out your family
virology,
when there's an
nothing.
emergency? Do you look out their family when there's some kind of a distress? I mean, there's a major pandemic going on. You're supposed to secure your family. I told the government, right? I said, set up tents, take the secondary schools, and let's move our people quickly, right? I mean, you close the border, okay, we accept that, but let's move our people out of harm's way. We had people out here
Yes,
for 2 weeks and money for they're on a vacation for 2 weeks. You wasn't already getting enough, how to say, foreign exchange already. So you were dependent on your family. This caused a lot of distress for people staying
exactly.
overseas. They had to do some unholy things to survive. And this story, we have to tell it. We have to let Trinidad and Tobago know the real reality of this. That what we
Yeah,
missed our
I
people.
mean, you're talking about stories, and this is an aside. But if our artists were as as productive as the Americans, uh, if this is America, they would make so many movies about this already. They'd have so many documentaries about this already. There'd be stories on Netflix about all these families who are locked out and the horrors they face. And I really have a pet peeve with our writers and artists and
Yeah, for their
filmmakers and
choice of
so forth.
production, right?
Yeah, we don't tell our stories, and so we don't know really.
Especially something like this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All
We
these,
had
yeah,
we had women lose their baby with the news, right? We
yeah.
had two women. In fact, one was a doctor. She lost the baby with the news of not getting able to come home. The baby fell out her stomach in the airport in Bahamas.
Oh
That's
my
one of the
God.
cases I get identified, right? The baby fell out when she got that news. The baby fell out in the airport and blood. And I had another woman who's a doctor. I mean, there's so many things to tell. Cook. We have to tell the
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
We have to do it.
yeah. I mean, and the bankruptcy. So many people lost their savings, their life savings,
Yeah, the
their
business, they
businesses,
cripple their business.
their families fell apart, their relationships, all kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
people
know.
had to find foreign exchange, right, to support their
Yeah,
family overseas. When I told them it was more feasible to bring the people home, you could carry something. If your family have the quarantine home, you could give them something there. But you have them outside the country. Now you got to find foreign exchange, and you can't even
exactly.
get it to send it to your family outside. I mean, all these things have to come for the PNM must never return to power because the citizens
Never.
must know the truth and the fact about these people, Kirk. You
That's
know?
right. Never. They must never
They
ever come
so
back.
much damage. So much
Yep.
damage. Ray, you have any questions to ask Cook at this point?
yes, I do. I do.
Go ahead.
If you go to the court, right, the court will award damages to the plaintiff, right? And who's going to pay it? Is the plaintiff going to pay it?
Mm-hmm.
It's tax money. And I
Yep.
think that is just the first step. What should be done is, and Gary, with your knowledge or intimate knowledge of these matters at a personal level with the different citizens, is they must have, and Kirk, you should encourage the Prime Minister to set up a commission of inquiry and invite all these people to tell their stories. Now, it has to go further than that. Brick and mortar do not commit crime. Brick and mortar do not commit crime. And individuals who made the decision, they must become accountable. Whether it's Stuart Young, whether it's the Minister of Health, etc., etc., and the Gang of Four. There was a Gang of Four. So we need to draft them in and make them personally liable for for some of the damages that they created. So there's no.
Let me just make a intervention here on that.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
this has been a long struggle for us outside of the PNM, trying to make the PNM accountable for all their crimes. And this is just the latest chapter. I was talking to Joseph Tony earlier today, who is a minister with the NAR government. Uh, when the NAR came in government, you had A.N.R. Robertson, Carl Hudson Phillips, Selwyn Richardson, who were with the PNM and who broke with the PNM over their corruption. You had people like Lincoln Myers fasting on the steps of the Hall of Justice for 40 days um, over PNM corruption. I think it was a report that he wanted released. I don't know if it was a Scott drug report or another one. And then as soon as the NAR came into government, they laid the Scott drug report, which the Chambers administration refused. So it was exposing the involvement in the drug trade. Since then, in 1985, it was laid in 87 in the Parliament. But then that was, I believe it was redacted. And then that same year, the NAR put together something called the Alexander Commission, which we should never ever forget, and which the country has forgotten, but I want to remind the country. And that Alexander Commission was led by Senior Counsel Alan Alexander to investigate every instance of corruption of the PNM from 1956 to 1986. They went everything, the gas station rackets, the DC-9, the Carney Racing Complex, the Mount Hope, the Twin Towers, everything, and it was laid out, Tesoro, Trinidad Tesoro, it had everything, and the NAR government was investigating all of it. The first major victory was with the Tesoro company, and where they found out George Chambers had Tesoro hire high-priced blonde prostitutes for him. So then he would give them favorable legislation and tax breaks and so forth. That was reported in the Wall Street Journal and everything. And we recovered the money in both U.S. courts and Canadian courts. Johnny O'Halloran's building in Scarborough, Toronto, up there. We made recovery. And when that was laid in Parliament, when that report was laid in Parliament, Joseph Tony was speaking, Eden Chan. You should see it. It is online on the Parliament website. You should read that document. It's just about PNM corruption. And while Joseph Tony was making his contribution, that date was July 27th, 1990. In the middle of his contribution, the Jamaat stormed the Parliament. All the papers got burnt and destroyed. A.N.R. Robinson said in the Parliament that there were 20 volumes they had collected of evidence against the PNM. All that's destroyed. I went to look for it recently to try to find those documents so we could reopen the cases. The Parliament has no record of it. In 1992, when Manning came back into government, the Manning government shut down the Alexander Commission and they did no further investigation. Then in 1993, Selwyn Richardson was murdered by a man on a bicycle, and nobody found Selwyn Richardson's killer. That is the story of PNM corruption, and this country, and it's been buried. People don't know about these things. It's been put down the memory hole, but we have to dredge all these things back up, because this is the same party that continues all that corruption, all that foolishness, even up to Penny claiming she was invited to the UN. That is insane. It is against UN protocols to invite the leader of opposition to speak for the government. She has no authority to speak for the government. She wasn't speaking to anybody at the UN. She was invited to the church across the street and some other events. PNM people have their strong New York links and connections in the Democratic Party and so forth.
They did. Yeah, exactly. And we're going to talk more about that, because they are responsible for causing Governor Patterson to come to Trinidad and accuse the PPG of being racist, because they convinced them that we were running a racist government, and it turned out more so that their party was being more racist. They were the party that pushing the race agenda in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? And they said, Mr. B says that we did more for people of African descent. They lied, and we have to call them. We can, but we have a lot of ground to cover, Kirk. But go ahead.
So they continue their lying, their pappy shows, their stunts, and so forth. And I mean, it's not. I at all. I don't want to say it's people of African descent with a broad brush at all. That not at all. It's PNM people. It's PNM. They've created a cult. It's not, and thankfully there are many African people who have recognize it from very long because it's those same African people that educated me. I
We
mean,
saw it in
I
the
was
election.
mentored
We
by
saw it in the
Lloyd
election.
Best, yeah, by N. Jack, by
And then
all
and
these
then, and then
people.
they went as far as threatening Afro Chinese to support in UNC. I had people call me and their jobs was threatened. They were threatening other Afro Chinese. In fact,
Yeah, of course,
they tried to sling up Jack Warner for supporting UNC.
that's right.
Jack
And,
is the most hated man.
yeah. And look at how they disparaged the award to Professor Selwyn Cudjoe. And um and Keith Rowley, after getting an honorary doctorate from Howard University, I think it's Wayne Fredericks his name, and then he gives that person an Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Nobody said anything. Who is that person? Why does he deserve an Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? And then, of course, the whole Candace Bond issue. Why does she get a national award? There's all kinds of speculations about that, which I won't get into here because it's not family friendly. It's not family friendly.
I think the PNM was wooing her in that kind of agenda, trying to say that we are a racist government, and they
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
pushing
Because the
that kind of
PNM have
agenda again.
that's
But
right. They
it got
have
called out.
nothing. They have no argument. They have nothing. Everything is just race. If I talk about Penny lying, it's I'm a racist. If I'm talking
Well,
about Williams lying,
speaking of
I'm a
Penny,
racist.
let me tell you about Penny. Penny was
Mhm.
UN ambassador when Dr. Rowley closed the border,
Yeah,
and she left everybody here and not did one thing to help them and run home for a seat. And how I know what's taking place, I had a woman call me because she knew I was helping people, and she said, "You won't believe I was staying with Penny. Penny left me and gone home and leave me here to suffer." You hear me?
yeah. That's right. I forgot she came to
Not one
screen
of our
for a seat.
citizens, Penny, did
Yes.
not help. Not one of our citizens. While I was struggling, why the consulate was turning their back on our citizens. I follow with the
Yeah.
consulate here that we don't speak to those who are there now right now. I had
Yeah.
big clashes with Miami. I had clashes with the Jamaican consulate, well, TT over there. I had clashes with I put the one in the UK, the High Commission over there, under pressure, and they get on the defensive, But like I said, I have a lot of statements to bring out. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, so as you said, the PNM could never come. Look how in just 5 months we're turning this crime situation around. Look how we've revived the dragon gas deal. Look how we're tackling so many issues in just 5 months in government. I mean, PNM in 10 years, not only do they do nothing, they take the country backward because in 2014, this country had the highest GDP, which means our economy was the biggest it ever was in our history. And then under the PNM, it shrunk again 20%. It took us back to the level we were at in 2006, and we're in 2025. I mean, the PNM are a total disaster. This government, once again, is proving how. I mean, we were supposed to become the Singapore, the Malta, the Dubai of the Caribbean. That's what we were destined to be in 1962. We had Caroni and Petrotrin and the railway and a bright, educated population. And when you look at the statistics of migration to Trinidad, up to 1962, Trinidad and Tobago was a net importer of persons. That means more people came to live in Trinidad and Tobago than left. Since 62, more people left Trinidad than came. There were very few years, I believe, sometime in around 95. There was a couple of years where we had more people coming in than leaving. And I don't know if there was any other time that there existed statistically, but usually every year. That's why since 1980, we've been like 1.2 million people. Right now they say it's 1.4. I mean, the world population in 1980 was probably 4 billion people. then it went to 5, 6, 7, 8. So everywhere else in the world, the population's growing and thriving. When in Trinidad, we stagnated, you know, and that's the PNM have stagnated us. And when you get a proper government in place, you see how we move. The PNM is really a curse, and what we are seeing now in these first few months, we are already seeing progress. And
Just
you know, just
imagine,
like
just imagine that
Mhm.
Pastor Pandey had gotten an opportunity much earlier in the game to be Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I mean,
Yeah,
just his reign from 1995 to 2002. In the sense that he of the kind of things that he, the drastic things that he had did,
yeah.
to
Yeah,
help
I
our
mean,
country.
in those 5 years, he did more than the PNM did in 15, 20 years. Just like when Kamala Prasad Visesa was prime minister before. In those 5 years, because in those 5 years, that's how a country should be moving, right? If you ever go to a place like Singapore or Qatar or Dubai, but the difference between like in 10 years, the country is totally changed. Eh? I mean, these countries, they double their GDP every 2 years. They're growing at such a fast rate because they move. And when we've had non PNM governments, that's how we've moved. But when the PNM come, everything is just backward, broken, uh, not working. It's terrible. It's terrible. I was listening to Sparrows. We like it so Calypso the other day. That is such a totally brilliant Calypso that stands up absolutely today. Just about the mentality of the PNM that they've inculcated in people, and we really have to rid ourselves of that curse in the country. No,
I want to extend any opportunity anyone else to speak at any, but I just want to say we have to do a cleanup job, and we'll talk more about that. But Vedos, Subha, do you want to join in and say anything real quick?
No, no, because I'm saying, I just want to repeat, whilst Anand will be winning the cases for individuals, I think there ought to be a commission of inquiry, and the individuals in the government have to take responsibility because there's significant evidence of discrimination. And with Delcy coming in at a time, and then you lying to the population, you don't know why she came. That's what the prime minister said. Is either we put dunce caps on our heads and admit that we are really foolish to accept those trivial and false explanations. So if you're a serious nation, we need to look into all these things. And
absolutely,
I'll give you one other example. Is when he told the president to pull back the recommendations by the police commission, right? I was appalled. You're interfering with a independent process. Something like that should never have happened. But it
yeah,
did happen, and the population did nothing about it. But my
that's
feeling
it.
is, and this is where I would recommend that these things the opposition at the time could have taken that to the courts, let the courts decide on certain things, because you
But
just
wait,
cannot
but
be.
quick question. Don't go anywhere. Wait, hold on a second. The thing about it, my concern is we're dealing with the justice system in Trinidad as a PNM party group. All right, the law association was functioning like a PNM party group, right? So I mean, the police force is a PNM party group. Let's call it as it is. All right, because the police force deteriorated for a number of years and the amount of corruption, and we ain't begin to touch that yet. All right, but if the
And,
justice system,
and
is working against us.
remember in 2015, when the court found that the EBC acted unlawfully, they said, "But we're not going to say that the election should
What
be
was that?
recalled."
That was called for enforcement. Angie, jump in whenever you want.
Yeah. So I mean, but no, we've called for a commission of inquiry into the handling of COVID and the
Angie,
management of the
unmuted. Go ahead.
billions of dollars that came into our country when we were in opposition, and I believe we will be following through on that. So that's something very important, But there's only so much you can do at one time. The budget now is very important. I mean, that's going to set the economic platform for for our government. This is because we've been running on a P&M budget until now. People don't realize that. So the Standard and Poor's rating and all that's a P&M budget, right? This is Colm Imbert's budget. So when Colm Imbert is criticizing the revenue projects, this is Colm Imbert's budget. It's his expenditure and revenue figures. We did a little variation when we came in a couple of months ago as the mid-year review, but we couldn't do anything fundamental. We had to borrow more because he purposely did not cater for all the expenditure, and that's what P&M did all the time anyway. They would have a budget in September, October, and then have one certain set of figures with a deficit figure. Then they'd come in the mid-year review and say, oh, well, we need another, $5 billion, $6 billion. They always played that stupid game, that they never budgeted properly. And so we're still, we're at the tail end of that, and now we're going to put in our own budget, and things will be different.
I want to give Angie a chance. Angie, can you jump in here real quick and ask your question? Unmute, Angie. Angie, you have to unmute your mic. Unmute your mic, Angie. Angie, you got to unmute. Oh, boy. Hold on a second. Let me call.
Are you hearing me?
I switched to the other connection you have now, so go ahead.
You're hearing me, right?
Yeah, you joined us twice, so let me just, hold on a second, let me just, okay.
Take off the phone if you can.
Yeah.
You're hearing me, right? Great, good. Dr. Meighoo, I just want to say it's really a pleasure to see you. And Dr. Meighoo, I just want to say it's really a pleasure to see you. And I know you were extremely instrumental.
Lost. I can't hear at the moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if you joined twice. Angie, go ahead. Angie, we were losing you. Come back in. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, right, Gary?
Yeah, now hearing you. Go ahead.
Yeah, we missed what you said before.
I wanted to ask a question of Dr. Meighoo. Sorry, I just wanted to say I know you were extremely instrumental in that win, and I want to say
yeah, we lost you, Angie. We lost you there. Oh boy. All right, gentlemen, go ahead until Angie can come back in.
All right. Yeah. So basically, the Prime Minister came back from a first trip with some excellent news. We have the budget coming up, and I think our results so far, especially in the 42% reduction in murders this year, is something to really celebrate. A lot of people have been saying, oh, well, you should put the UNC figures because the PNM was in power. Well, we've calculated the UNC figures as well, and it's even greater when you compare it. It's over 50% reduction. Now, I'll publish that later. I'll let people argue about that now.
Public service sector. Okay.
Go ahead, Angie.
So my next comment is, we keep saying we want to spend, we want to make sure.
Re-ask your first question because you were dropped out. So come back with the first one.
The one where I said that the public service sector we know that the majority of public service persons are PNM. Am I correct?
Well, there's no statistical evidence, but definitely the PNM.
I think we're getting a bad signal.
Have packed the public service. There's no question about that.
Okay, go with your second question.
Right. Second question is, we keep saying that we want to stay in government, but as a membership and as a person who have been campaigning in general elections for many, many years, it is the habit that the people who, when we win the election, we are in a state of euphoria, we are on a honeymoon, and we don't seem to think that 5 years is not a long time. It is not a very long time to be in government, to be fixing, to be putting in place. And we tend to lose that ground. And then we have to start all over again with winning the trust and winning the confidence and bringing back people on board, those who got disenchanted and whatever. And I always believe that the councillors and the MPs play the most important role within that 5 years in terms of maintaining that trust and confidence so that we can win back another general election. I am in the San Fernando area and I am there almost every weekend with the team. And one of the things I realize is that even the PNM people, to hold them and make them believe in us and convince them, there are certain things that you must do that we don't always do because we still have those party lines, PNM, UNC, PNM, UNC, and Dr. Meighoo, I know because you are a team that won this election, what would the strategy be for the next 5 years to make sure that when that general election bell is called again, we are ready and we are confident that we could do it again?
I would say that in looking back in history, I think the communications was a problem in the previous administration. And they also didn't understand the way the PNM worked, and they didn't understand the cultish nature of the PNM and how to deal with a cult, and how to deal with a it kind of psychologically brainwashed people. I mean, imagine a person saying, "Oh, it's a bad thing that the government is giving my child a laptop to go to school. That is so bad." Or this is what PNM supporters were saying. They in the Pandy area, they, oh, it's a bad thing to make all children, primary school children, go to secondary school. Some students are not bright enough to go to secondary school. If you remember the debates at that time, that's actually what the PNM said. And for people, supporters, to actually say that, that's because there's a real process of brainwashing, and you definitely see that. Like it comes up again. For instance, when I raised the point that we had a prime minister before Eric Williams, when we were a colony, when we were part of the federation, because we were supposed to become independent, not as Trinidad and Tobago, but as a federation of the West Indies. And then Bustamante and Williams broke up the federation. And when I said that, it's like I cursed Jesus Christ or something. It was the reaction was hyperbolic, was crazy, right? They're just crazy out of their heads, because it's a cult we're dealing with. Somehow these PNM people sadly have been told that they are nothing without the PNM. They are nothing without Eric Williams. That somehow if something is wrong, if somehow you criticize the PNM, you criticize their very identity. Their self-worth is built around that. That's like a cult. That is exactly like a cult, and it's like a death cult too. I always remember campaigning in the 2020 elections, and online, and I'd be debating with a whole bunch of people, and nobody could really have a rational argument as to why one should choose the PNM over the UNC. The UNC was proven superior in every way. And then somebody came up with a meme saying, I'd rather suffer under the PNM than prosper under the UNC. And that caught on, and people were they liked it and shared it and repeated it, and that that's like a death cult, and so we have a proportion of our population. I don't believe it's a majority, right? But it is a significant proportion of our
May I make a
population.
comment? May I make a comment and something that I
Sure.
observed about the 2025 elections? Out of all the elections that we have had, general elections, I must say this was the most crisp, on target, one message. The branding was absolutely phenomenal because we looked at it from abroad. Gary would tell you the feeds that we were getting from the various campaigns, they all looked like everybody was on the same ship. It's the first time I've seen that. And I belong to a group in the US called Campaigns and Events, which deals with political, a group of us, we just sit and they criticize. Some of them are within the government part of the US. And exactly what I said, exactly how I'm saying it is exactly what they saw because they look at what we did before. And even the color schemes and the decor on the backstage, it seems like the subliminal message that went across really well was the branding and the when UNC win, everybody wins. And that kept repeating itself. And it was like a drug being fed. So on the
Yeah.
day of the elections, I saw that whole campaign, the result of it. So, I mean, I don't know who the team was that put it together. I'm sorry, I don't know, but I must say that it was the cleanest, crispest, if that's a word, one message campaign. And we didn't have every constituency doing their own thing with their multicolored banners and everybody, that to me made a world of difference in how this campaign came across.
Yeah. The messaging is very important, and and as a party, we worked hard for it, and Kamala Prasad Bissessa really took charge of that in the campaign as well. So it was, and that was the result of years and years of building that. That wasn't just the campaign. By the time the campaign came, we were a well-oiled machine. We had, I mean, every week we had at least one press conference, often two, at least one political meeting, often two, and each one of those meetings is a testing out and exercising the machinery of the party and gathering people, in advertising, in organizing venues, in organizing meetings, in getting the word out on social media. And we were doing that, so those things like 3, 4, 5 times a week. We started to control the narrative as the opposition, so by the time the election came around, when we had that slogan and the song and the branding and the image, it was building on all that work we did before. So we didn't really have to make a lot of arguments anymore because we had made them all before. It was just the messaging, and as you rightly said, it worked on a lot of different levels. Not just the apparent level, but there's a strong psychological element that was part of it, and that's always part of good messaging. So we definitely have to continue that for our 5 years in this term, so that we can ensure another 5 and another 5 and another 5 in perpetuity. I remember when the PNM came in
If I may, if I
1956,
may
it
say
went to
so,
86. Mhm.
if I may say this, in the best way I can, we promised the country and the people, and I'm saying people meaning all of Trinidad and Tobago, that the government of the day, the UNC government, headed by Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, promised the country, we will be accountable, we will report to you. So far, yes, but we have something called the Monday Night Report, which a lot of people have access to. They come out, they want to be in the midst, they want to be present. And I'm not sure whether I should say it's not a consistent thing. That's not happening every month, once a month, twice per month, something like that. I'm not sure. But I've heard it on the ground that, it's a random thing. Now, the minute I start hearing things like that, my brain go into overdrive thinking we need to stick to whatever we say, no matter how hard it is. Because these people, and I'm saying our people, including the PNM people, they are looking at us through a magnifying glass. Everything we say we will do, we must do. Everything we promise, as much as we can, we have to fulfill. To me, that will be the formula for us to go into our next general election. That will make it a lot easier for us. We have many areas that are still suffering, and Gary Mahabir will tell you that. He's in the US. I was in the US with him, and people would call you for things, and they're not getting through to a counselor, or they're not getting through to this one. And it's very disheartening. Remember, they don't have the same access as we do. And we have to remember those are the people we are depending on for the votes. And that's where my concern is really. I mean, I don't want it to sound bad, but I'm there on the ground with everybody else. But sometimes we need to remember that even if you are a counselor, you have a responsibility to those people. Those are the people that put you there. And you can't just shove them off. And you're getting negative response from offices where persons are being, what do you call it, snubbed, for want of a better word. And those are things you don't want to hear. If
Yeah.
you understand what I'm saying, Dr. Meighoo, I think your personality will understand what I'm saying.
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, sadly, not everybody lives up to the responsibility they've been entrusted with. And this is part of any organization, any large organization. And it's something that definitely needs to be dealt with. And I believe that Prime Minister will be dealing with these issues, as they arise. And because definitely that is what we need to do, and how we need to be move forward. I see the time is coming up to 9. I must be departing at this hour, but I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to everybody. It's been great, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, thank you
Good.
very much, Dr. Mayhew. And the channel, like I said, I want to reiterate that this channel
Good
is
night,
available
Dr.
for you,
Meighoo.
you
Good
guys
night.
anytime that you need it. And also, I would like to continue this discussion whenever you could come back. And I've been trying to get our elected ministers who were on this program here before to come back. I understand the nature of situation everybody's dealing with, and we're dealing with a lot. We are not really coming from ground level; we come from the ground level. And but we have assembled a team, right? And right now we are assisting Toko Sandy Grandi, and our team is available. Vade, Suman Singh, Angie. We're doing a lot of background work to assist to make sure our citizens are taken care of. We are responding to those calls we understand that the MP and the council cannot pick up all call, but at some point they can respond back, because we try to fill in the gap there to pick up the slack for them. And we're providing all that support. We're creating a lot of things. Like I've made Toko Sandy Grandi a focus constituency, and we are doing everything to assist on the side, and you will be updated more so going forward. But there's quite a bit of things that we're doing, and I'm bringing everybody on board. We also have a wonderful Diwali program that we all to try to get going up there, and I hope that you could attend. It's on the 16th and 17th of October, so you can choose a day. Hopefully, I'm hoping to get the Prime Minister to come, because we are
Okay.
working very hard to make sure that, and you can remind her because now she's very busy. And I mean, I do inform her, but I don't want to bombard her at the same time. So we are hoping to make something nice enough that we can make an impact up there, and it seems like it's heading in that direction. I've pulled everybody from the UNC possible to get involved, in
Yeah.
helping to make sure we have a good show and celebration up there. And we are our team, Betsy Ram, Suman Singh, Dr. Stephen Rambo, former, let's say, ODPM CEO, is helping very much behind the scenes. I mean, helping with hampers and a lot of things. We are picking up the slack behind the scenes and a lot of things. So I do
Yeah.
want to thank you for taking
Good.
time, and
Uh,
definitely I want to have you
yeah.
back here. Bailey, you have anything to add?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just to get in a word, because it's difficult to get to Kirk, right? And I just want to repeat Angie's sentiments. Is do not forget the core constituents and the there's certain amounts of liabilities that the government has legally acknowledged to the cane farmers. I had asked the Prime Minister to put that on the platform, which she did. So just to remind them, a gentle reminder to make that as a priority as well, because that's long overdue to the farmers and of course to the sugar workers. I think you all are focusing on distribution of the remaining land. So
That's
I
right.
think the payment to the cane farmers is long overdue, and no other recipient creditor should jump the line. No other creditor. That's why I'd suggested to the Minister of Finance to list out all the liabilities in terms of aging of the liabilities and make the older ones payment first.
Yeah.
So that's very important. Rather than paying a lawyer from the United Kingdom, jump the line and they get paid first, and these the core supporters are left out. Perhaps for the next 5 years, 10 years, we have been waiting a very long time. And the little small grumblings on the ground, you don't want to let that amplify.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kirk, what I
Okay.
like to do is I like to do a couple private Zoom meetings with you. We could add the team so we could advise you a little more on some things,
Okay.
offline.
All right.
So let me know when that's possible, and we'll arrange it with the team. Because there's some things we want to bring to your attention.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Dr. Mayu,
Yeah,
and
good night.
we enjoy having
Good
you. Good
night.
night, everybody.